Hey everyone! Welcome back to another episode of JRPG Academy. On our previous episode, we took a look at the innovative and masterful battle system of Valkyrie Profile. You can check out that video in the JRPG Academy playlist. Today, we're going to talk about a somewhat controversial topic. That is, the episodic game. Once was considered a very ambitious undertaking has become a bastardized version of its former self. This is due in part to the very popular Walking Dead episodic games popularized by Telltale Games. Since then, the term episodic has become very negative. But this was not always the case. In the 2000s, episodic games were seen as neutral, especially in the realm of JRPGs. Two of the most prominent examples would be the Dot Hack and Xenosaga series. Despite your personal feelings on how successful the games were, they allowed people to see the potential of creating a massive and grand story that was large in scope, akin to Star Wars, Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. Unfortunately, these games require a heavy commitment from both the players and the developers. The developer has to deliver a story that justifies a deep level of world building and characterization. The player has to invest a large amount of time in this singular story. The question becomes, is this story too big for one game, or is the story way too inflated and needs to be edited down? As a developer, you have to answer this early on because a deep level of planning has to go into creating a multi-game story. As mentioned earlier, Xenosaga attempted this multi-game story. Their original plan was to have 6 games in total to tell the entire story in full. Unfortunately, due to Episode 2 not meeting sales expectations, the third game became the final game in the series. This meant that a lot of the story that was planned had to either be condensed down into this single game, or completely scrapped. This resulted in Xenosaga Episode 3 feeling rushed. It received mixed reviews from the gaming press and sold a decent amount. Another unfortunate example of a multi-game story was the Final Fantasy XIII series. Each game felt like it would undo or retcon the previous game. Though I enjoyed how all the loose ends were tied up in Lightning Returns, it still feels like these games were tacked on last minute. For the most part, most developers do not make multi-game stories because it is a gamble. If the game fails to be successful, it may not reach its full potential. And then you have to rush to squeeze everything into one game or just leave everything on a cliffhanger. Neither scenario is favorable. Now, episodic games are a challenge to make. But when done correctly, they can be amazing experiences that are unmatched. A perfect example would be the Trails Kiseki series. Nihon Falcom has created a 10-part multi-game story that are direct sequels. The first game in the series, Trails in the Sky, came out way back in 2004. These games have individual arcs that can be enjoyed separately as isolated series or a part of the larger meta-series. These games are a masterclass in world building, character development and multi-layered fleshed-out stories. The Trails franchise has been able to satiate my need for engrossing episodic stories. Back in the day, I deeply enjoyed Xenosaga for their amazing revelations and cliffhangers. It did a great job of keeping me invested in the story. The Trails series has been able to take that idea and run with it. This fall, The Legend of Heroes, Trails of Cold Steel 4 will arrive on PlayStation 4, which will commence the end of the Erebonia arc for the franchise. But this is not the end. We still have more games coming from this series that will explore another part of Zemoria. When it was announced that Final Fantasy VII Remake would be episodic, many people in the gaming community were not pleased, to say the least. I personally see this as an opportunity to really tell this story in a way that's unlike the original. Especially now, since the developers are going to be making changes and tweaks to the narrative, this will allow them to create a fully fleshed out story. I think this is the best way to go about this remake. Episodic or multi-game stories can be amazing and wonderful. You have to have an open mind and be willing to allow the storytellers to take you on a journey. You have to give up control and fully immerse yourself in the story they are trying to tell. Only then will you be able to enjoy everything it has to offer. So what do you guys think about episodic games? Do you think they are a cash grab? Do you think they are pretentious and overly convoluted? Do you think Final Fantasy VII Remake will suffer because of this format? Please leave us a comment and tell us what you think. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share this video if you enjoyed this.
Times have changed. You win.
Don't forget to subscribe!